You are in the jungle. I'm Matt Edwards. Thank you for tuning in. My apologies for this podcast being a day late. My guest that was supposed to be on this week canceled on me the day of the recording, and I already had a busy day, so these kind of things happen in the entertainment industry, you might say. My voice just now getting back to 100% after being at the Bengals 49ers game on Sunday. I was one of the few Bengals fans in attendance, seemingly. I mean, I don't know what was up with that. 49ers fans really packed that house. And as I put out there on the twitter.com, disappointing to see this team be in the midst of a playoff race and the entire top section, the third tier of the stadium, is just about empty. Now, I've been on record saying time and time again that the TV experience in the NFL is better. But that's for me. I'm kind of a uptight snob who likes to sit home and watch the whole league. Most NFL fans, I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong here, not most, but a large majority, maybe most, like to watch their team drink beer and let the rest of the chips fall where they may. I am not that type of guy. Of course, as you know, I covered sports and all that for a long time, so I really still have that bone in me, that DNA in me, which is why I do this podcast. I just don't understand how Paul Brown Stadium can have, that few fans in attendance. Not that few, it wasn't that bad. That many empty seats for a team that was literally playing for first place on Sunday. And B, you take away the 49ers fans on Sunday, and I don't know that the place is half full. So that's disappointing on many levels. It ended up being a great game, and I know we're 3 days removed from it now, but it's kind of one of those things where, as I was producing this podcast, no matter whether you want to look back even 2 weeks ago at the Chargers game, last week at the 49ers game, or look forward to this week when the Bengals head to Denver to play the Broncos, it's all kind of the same. The Bengals are kind of, I feel, and I was talking to my dad about this last night, it's weird to come off back-to-back losses and still feel like this is a really good team. They just have to put it all together. It kind of reminds me of the Reds in a way, where the Reds for so many years you feel like have the pieces, but there's always one sector of the team or one unit on the team that just keeps peeing down the side of their legs, and that's what causes losses in the end. Of course, against the 49ers, it was the special teams. Darius Phillips, 2 fumbled punt returns in the first half, give San Francisco 10 easy points. And when you're talking about a game that it was the first one to 26 wins, 10 points is kind of a lot. So, I don't know. It's, Peter King was in Cincinnati, the great Sports Illustrated writer, Ohio University alum. He was told by George Kittle, the San Francisco 49ers tight end after that game on Sunday, that it felt like a playoff game. And it kind of also feels like a playoff game in the sense that people, usually by Tuesday, by Wednesday, people have kind of gotten over it. It's 8 in the morning now on Wednesday when I'm recording this, and I get on Twitter, and last night, and I try not to live through Twitter, but it's kind of hard not to, people are still talking about this San Francisco loss and all the things that went wrong, and that's what makes it feel like a playoff game, and I hope that the players don't get trapped in that same kind of mentality of dwelling on this game for the entire week, because everything the Bengals need is still in front of them. I'll break it down later in the show, but the Bengals can still wake up on Monday morning in first place in the AFC North in a scenario that's very realistic, especially after the Browns placed 8 players on the COVID list, including, I think, 4 offensive starters. We'll see if they play Saturday versus Las Vegas, but we'll get to that a little later. Let's start with something a little bit obvious. Let's start with the fact that these last 2 losses and the game coming up all comes down to one little thing. And apparently it's not a little thing, but on paper it's a little thing. The Bengals can beat anyone, or just about anyone, maybe aside from those few top-tier teams like the Packers, and we'll find out in a couple weeks with the Chiefs. The Bengals can beat anyone if they just eliminate mistakes. And everyone's talking about Darius Phillips, and that's fair, but I don't come to expect a ton out of your punt returner. I don't come to expect a ton out of the special teams in general, although they left 13 points, or were pretty much directly responsible for 13 points. I mentioned the 10 points in the first half, plus an Evan McPherson missed field goal, and in a game where the winner scored 26, 13 is a hell of a lot of points. But let's not forget, when we talk about mistakes so often, we talk about interceptions, turnovers, fumbles, penalties, those sort of things. Let's not forget that the coaching staff can make mistakes that are more costly than the turnovers. And I've been a Zach Taylor defender, and I remain a Zach Taylor defender, and I love the way he comes out in his post-game conference and in his Monday press conference and admits his mistakes and say they kept him up at night. But you got to be figuring these things out by now. You've got to be figuring out that if you've watched the NFL for more than 2 years, you know that when good quarterbacks are in a rhythm, they're pretty unstoppable. So why'd you take the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands? These are the little things in the play calling he's been criticized for throughout the year. It's like last year when Joe Burrow wasn't what he is now. They wanted to throw the ball 40 times, 50 times a game. And now all of a sudden that he's really morphing into this elite quarterback, Zach Taylor wants to be a running team? Well, if that's the case, why did you draft T. Higgins 33rd overall and Jamar Chase 5th overall? If that's the case, maybe you should have went with Penei Sewell. But when you get to overtime, you can't throw the ball. The first play of overtime, Joe Burrow throws the ball for 26 yards. Second play, throws it for 23 yards. He's just led you on a game-winning, game-tying drive, and he's pounding his chest like freaking King Kong. And you take the ball out of his hands the next 2 plays? Come on. That's not a hard thing to see. I think sometimes this coaching staff and Zach Taylor, they outthink themselves. All of a sudden, you've got Joe Burrow hotter than fish grease, and you want to take the ball out of his hands. I don't want to dwell on the losses, but, the past is the best indicator of the future. And the past is where you learn from your mistakes. And there's been too many times this season where it just feels like you're trying to become this thing you're not. And they talked about during the bye week this year that they wanted to become more of a running football team. And that's fine. But when your quarterback's out there just kicking butt up and down the field, you're going to hand the ball off with 2 backup offensive linemen in? I mean, you got to be smart. And that's the other thing, man. He's been a guy who, with less than 2 minutes to go in the half, he goes for the kill. He's aggressive. But all of a sudden, that stops when a touchdown can win you the game and you're in your opponent's territory. And the defense had been playing well. At the time, I'll be honest, I was fine with it, but I'm not the friggin' head coach. At the time, I was fine with it because I thought this defense has been playing great. I think the last 22 minutes of regulation, they allowed no points. But what do you do there? What do you do there? You hand the ball off twice. No, you go for the freaking kill. I sound like a 5th grader saying freaking over and over. But it's not how you get to the playoffs. He's been aggressive his first 3 years in Cincinnati, and all of a sudden with the game on the line, with first place on the line, think about that right now. The Bengals could be in first place in the division today. It feels like a totally opposite thing. And again, this is just a microcosm of the overall state of this team, it feels like right now. They're trying to change their identity mid-season, it feels like, and that's not going to get you to the playoffs. Remember what got you to 5-2. Remember what got you to 7-4? 7-4 seems pretty good right now, doesn't it? When you're sitting there at 7-6. I will say the one thing that didn't really get talked about in the aftermath of this game that I'm really happy about, Joe Burrow's pinky. Looks all right, doesn't it? Isn't that quite the 180 from last week when he was screaming in agony on the sideline? Looks pretty good. Now, let me play devil's advocate against myself, something I would have done a little bit with my guest had they not brutally canceled on me. Just killed me. Really hurt. No one's ever did that to me before. The offensive line was not playing well. Joe Burrow was getting hit again way too much. So, the offensive line not playing well, maybe you don't want to throw the ball as much. Maybe you want to run. Okay, there's that. But then you play devil's advocate to that, and Zach Taylor, you brought him in because he's this offensive genius. Find a way. Joe Burrow was finding a way. Maybe don't run 5 wide as often as you do. Maybe you don't have the luxury to do that when you've got your 3rd-string tackle in there, going up against Nick Bosa. And this week going up against Bradley Chubb and that whole gang. Maybe you're an offensive genius. You're an NFL head coach, for God's sake. Put Drew Sample in the backfield at fullback. Put whoever you want back there. Chip someone. Give Joe Burrow an extra 2 seconds. Good things are probably going to happen. And I just hope this was a bit of a breaking point for Zach Taylor. I hope, and it kind of seems like maybe it was. If he walks the talk, is that the right word? Walks the walk of the talk he was talking in the postgame, saying it kept him up at night, taking the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands, then maybe this ends up kind of being the tipping point where he goes over the top and says, you know what, I am that aggressive guy. I am going to give the ball to my all-world quarterback, and I'm going to see what happens. Because so far, when you do that and you give him just enough time, good things happen. So I know we're looking ahead toward Denver now. Other than the Chiefs, I don't see anyone left on the Bengals schedule who can beat them if they play mistake-free football. Right? You look at what they've got left. They've got the Broncos, they've got the Ravens, they've got the Chiefs, they've got the Browns. 4 games left. 3 of those, especially if Lamar Jackson's not 100%, Lamar Jackson is the Ravens right now. Lamar Jackson, if the Ravens win the AFC North, has to be in the MVP conversation, by the way, because without him, there may be a 500 team, right? But anyways, let's focus on Denver right now, because that's the team that's in front of the Bengals. That's the team that you look at as the easiest game on the schedule. Either that or Cleveland for sure. But it kind of feels like it's not about the opponent right now. It's about the Bengals playing mistake-free football. There's that. And then you realize, the Broncos are 7-6. That's weird. I thought they weren't that good. That's the Bengals record, too. They're also 7-6. The Broncos are at home. Let's look at their schedule. Who have they beat? They beat the Chargers. Chargers are pretty good. They beat the Cowboys. Cowboys aren't bad. On paper, this is the easiest game left, but I don't like the fact that it seems to be one of those ones where you want to just chalk it up as a W. They're not the Texans. They're not the Jaguars. This is a good team. They've got a winning record in a tough division, right? I don't like using the phrase must win unless it's a genuinely must win, but you can't let this one go. You got the better quarterback. You're playing on the road with your back up against the wall. If you fall to 7-7 against a conference team in the AFC, and especially if the Browns pull it out against the Raiders, and especially if the Chargers pull it out against the Chiefs, you're kind of in trouble. It feels like a must-win game. Again, I don't like using that phrase unless it's a must-win. Like maybe when the Bengals get to Week 17, they need to win their final 2. Otherwise, they don't have a shot. Those are must-wins. Must-win's kind of a gray area. It feels like a must-win when the Bengals go to Denver. And again, I sat there and I looked at what Denver's good at, what Denver's bad at. I don't think it matters. I think it matters what the Bengals do. It's not like these mistakes. I mean, the coaching mistakes are not being forced into. At least turnovers and penalties, you can sit there and say, our opponent forced us into that. These are unforced errors that the Bengals are committing right now. Dropping a punt, missing a field goal, running the ball twice when your quarterback is just off the charts at the moment. And there was some good, and there has been some good. And, for the second week in a row, we saw the Bengals down multiple scores, feeling like it was over, and they bounce back. Imagine what happens if they don't put themselves in that situation. Now, I've been someone who's been okay with the Bengals' quote-unquote slow starts, but the slow starts are tough when you put yourself in a hole. Slow starts are okay when you're, down 10-7 at halftime. Not when you're down whatever it was, 13-3. Or no, it wasn't even 17-3, 16-3, whatever it was against San Francisco. And then, of course, a 24-0 hole against the Chargers. You can't put yourselves in those kind of slow starts and expect to be able to mount a comeback on Sunday like they did every week. And then come up just short, and then it's all for naught. That's an emotionally draining game, and you worry about that with the Bengals. You worry about them going out west after that sort of game and being able to get up. But we'll see. The defense was excellent again, right? I'm going glass half full here at the moment. Defense was awesome. The stand by the Bengals defense after the first possession of the second half was huge. The 49ers marched down. It looked like they were going to score again. And really, you can only put 10 points on the Bengals in regulation. Of course, the overtime drive was what it was. But 10 of the 49ers' 20 points in the first 4 quarters were a result of turnovers by the special teams. The other thing I'm going nuts about, once T. Higgins and Jamar Chase both get clicking at the same time, and they kind of did on Sunday, which is crazy to say about a team that only scored 23 points, but once they both get going, who stops him? I mean, T. Higgins has been the best receiver in football the last 2 weeks. And I just wonder if that ankle wasn't nagging him for a month earlier in the season. Where's this offense at now? Maybe they're a little behind schedule now between him kind of getting caught back up, because I really don't feel like he was fully healthy until the last 3 weeks or so, until after the bye. And the Bengals have been relatively fortunate on the injury front. Obviously, Logan Wilson's a big injury. Brandon Wilson, their kick returner, was kind of the big one earlier in the season. The offensive line here recently with Riley Reiff and Trey Hopkins, not cool, but they look like they're both going to bounce back. They didn't play the second half. We'll see what happens this week. It seems like they'll both play again. It's just a matter of where are they at? Are they what they can be? Because on Sunday, that made quite a big impact. Here's a scenario where the Bengals can get back into first place on Sunday. So the Browns will play on Saturday. Cleveland, if you didn't see on Tuesday, placed several players on the COVID list. My God, every team is placing several players on the COVID list. That includes Jarvis Landry, their best receiver. That includes Austin Hooper, their starting tight end. Those two alone lead the Browns in receptions. Wyatt Teller on the COVID list. Jedrick Willis on the COVID list. I mean, the list goes on. Tack McKinley, and it looks like another few backup guys. Now, you don't want to see anyone have to go on the injury list for any reason. However, that could certainly play a factor into the Bengals' odds at being in first place on come Monday morning / Sunday night. So if the Browns lose on Saturday to the Las Vegas Raiders, and the Ravens lose on Sunday to Green Bay, and the Bengals win on Sunday at Denver, boom, just like that, the Bengals are back in first place in the AFC North. It feels like we're saying this every week, though. We're saying every week, here's this freaking scenario. There I go with my freakins again. Here's the scenario. I don't want to say bad words on this family-friendly podcast. Here is the scenario we're telling you every week where the Bengals can get back into first place, and the Ravens are begging the Bengals to get back in first place, and they just won't do it. So I don't know if I should even give out the scenario. Maybe I should back off of that. Bengals could be at as high as the 4 seed, as high as the 4 seed come Monday. They could be as low as the 11 seed, which would be bad news Bears. I believe that if the, let me look here. I believe that if the Bengals don't win on Sunday, they would go, no matter what, I think, down to the 10 seed, which just not ideal, right? I mean, you're talking about a team that we still do have high hopes for. I still think the Bengals are arguably the best team in the division, and they're definitely one of the best 7 teams in the AFC. They've just got to not make those mistakes. So, we'll see. Yeah, the Bengals could fall if the Bengals lose, the Bengals will fall, I believe, to the 10 seed. We'll see. There's so much that can happen. The AFC North is so tight. We'll worry about that when the time comes. And with all the, it's fun to talk about. And obviously, I like talking about it, but it really doesn't matter at this point who was where. There's so much that's going to change over the coming weeks. You just got to win your game. If the Bengals can win 3 of their next 4, really even 2 of their next 4, I think they get in, but 3 of the next 4, they will get in. So it all comes down to that. And if you're going to win 3 of 4, this is not one against Denver you can let get away. So you want to hear the rapid fire questions that I gave for my guest? We'll do that, right? I don't know if this is going to be any good or not, but here's what I was going to ask. You can play along at home. The first thing I said was, first thing on your Christmas list. What would it be for you guys? I don't know. For me, oh God, I did the iPhone update. Now it's telling me a few million things. For me, I had put ice cream scoop as the top thing. Now, is that the thing I wanted the most? No, but I really need one. I always bend my spoons because I just use the regular spoons, and that'll really grind your gears. You don't want that. Next thing up, Bengals are now, God, did you know this? The Bengals are 0-4 in their black jerseys, which means they're 7-2 when they don't wear their black jerseys. They are not wearing them on Sunday. They're wearing the white jerseys. Do the jerseys have anything to do with the outcomes? I think they could. I think the black jersey look is kind of the most mundane of their jerseys. Like, obviously, the all-white looks super fresh. The orange has a pop to it that makes you feel good. You look good, you play good. Carlos Dunlap told us that a while ago. I did a fashion story on the Bengals back in 2015, and he was a big proponent of you look good, you play good. I don't know. Maybe get rid of those black jerseys. All black's kind of cool, I guess. Next question. If you were to become step-siblings with one current Bengal, similar to how one Dale Doback and Brennan Huff became step-siblings in the 2008 drama Step Brothers, who would it be if you could be step-siblings with one Bengal? Asking myself these questions is kind of awkward. For me, I mean, there's a lot of cool, like Clark Harris, the long snapper, really fits the portfolio, right? But is he going to be the coolest? Like, that's a good question. I mean, Joe Burrow's obviously, but then you got to realize too, like, whoever this is, you could butt heads with. I'll go Clark Harris, so he fits the profile. If you could punch any athlete in the face, who would it be? I've asked this question to quite a few guests over the years. The first guy who comes to mind is typically Hines Ward. And again, it's not like I want to hurt the guy. One punch from me wouldn't do much. I don't want to, injure him. But man, if I could get one crack at him, I'd like to. Kay Adams of Good Morning Football on NFL Network. She was ruler of the jungle on Sunday, and she was awesome at it. She did a great job of really immersing herself in the game day experience in Cincinnati. It was great, and she's an excellent anchor on NFL Network. If you, dear listener, could nominate one person to be ruler of the jungle, who would it be? Okay, that's cool. That's a good pick. I agree with you. My pick would be the comedian Cat Williams, who I wanted to be on College Game Day when they went to University of Cincinnati. Cat Williams is an insane person. If you haven't seen his special Pimp Chronicles, it's one of the greatest stand-up comedy specials of all time, and he is an insane man. He would probably dive from the rafters, the ruler of the jungle stage, into the stands. I'd go Cat Williams. I'm not even going to do that one. I'll do my prediction for Sunday. I will take the Bengals winning 20-7. 20-17. Scratch that. I will take the Bengals to win in Denver 20-17. Again, it's not about if the Bengals do. I'm kind of banking on the Bengals making a few bonehead plays at this point. So I feel like against Denver, they've got to be able to hold them under 20. And really, again, it comes down to don't give the offense great opportunities. The Bengals defense, if you start Denver on their own 25, I don't know that the Denver defense the Denver offense gets more than 10 points. But I'm kind of counting on the Bengals right now to screw up a few times, whether that's the coaches or the players or whoever. It's becoming a little bit of a habit too much right now for me to believe the tide's going to turn on that right away. So hopefully this can be kind of a get-right game in that respect. I'll take the Bengals to win 20-17 in Denver. By the way, the Bengals are underdogs this week. They are 1.5 point underdogs. The ESPN FPI predictor only gives them a 39% chance to win. So there's that. That's something interesting. I would have thought the Bengals would have been favorites. Vegas knows, baby. Vegas knows. And the final thing was for my guest to ask me a question. My guest cannot do that because they're not here. But that is okay. That is okay. All right, that's all I got for you. It's been in the jungle. I'm sorry this was kind of an awkward episode. It's a rough week, man. The holidays are here. The Bengals have lost 2 in a row. Our pets' heads are falling off. We're going nuts. If you want to follow me on Twitter, I am at Matt Edwards. I have some fun over there. If you don't, that's fine. If you don't have Twitter, congratulations. Your life is much better, and you are living well, my friend. So if you like the podcast, tell a friend about it. Tell them to listen to it on their drive to Grandma's this Christmas holiday season, and enjoy yourself. We will see you next week, hopefully, for the love of God, coming off a win in Denver. It's been In the Jungle, and I am Matt Edwards. Have a good day.